Archangel Michael says, sometimes, it takes one small misstep to unravel the life you've worked so hard to build. Today, I want to share a message that could save you from a financial pitfall that has trapped so many before you. A story about a simple mistake, one that cost someone everything they had, and how they found a way back through faith, wisdom, and guidance. It all began with a young professional, full of dreams and ambition. Fresh out of college, they landed their first job, and with it came their first credit card. It felt like a rite of passage, a shiny piece of plastic that opened the door to possibilities. What they didn't realize was that this small card held the potential to bring them both convenience and catastrophe. At first, it was harmless small purchases here and there. A coffee, a dinner out with friends, a pair of shoes they had been eyeing for months. "I'll pay it off next month," they told themselves. But that next month turned into the month after, and before they knew it, the balance had grown beyond what they could manage. Each statement brought new waves of anxiety, but they ignored it, hoping it would somehow resolve itself. Archangel Michael says, ignoring wisdom is like walking blindfolded through a maze. It only leads to more confusion and despair. The young professional ignored the warning signs. The late fees began piling up. The interest rates ballooned, turning small purchases into towering debts. But instead of addressing the issue, they sought comfort in more spending, believing temporary happiness could mask their growing stress. Like this video if you're ready to receive guidance and clarity in your life today. One night, they sat alone, scrolling through their statements with trembling hands. The weight of their choices had become unbearable. They couldn't even remember how it got this bad. As tears welled up in their eyes, they dropped to their knees, overwhelmed with regret. In that moment of desperation, they whispered a prayer, asking for help, for a sign, for anything to guide them out of this darkness. The answer didn't come as a booming voice or a miraculous windfall. Instead, it came in small, quiet ways. A budgeting seminar ad that popped up on their feed, an old friend who reached out and shared their own journey of overcoming debt, and a church sermon about stewardship that seemed to be speaking directly to their heart. These were not coincidences but signs, messages meant to steer them back to the path of wisdom and discipline. The young professional began to reflect deeply on their habits and choices. They realized that their reliance on material things for happiness had blinded them to the true riches in life, faith, relationships, and peace of mind. Slowly, they started making changes. They created a budget, cut unnecessary expenses, and sought help from financial advisors and trusted mentors. It wasn't an overnight transformation. There were moments of doubt, times when they were tempted to fall back into old patterns. But with each step forward, they felt a renewed sense of purpose. The burden of debt began to lift, and along with it, the shame and guilt they had carried for so long. They found joy not in spending, but in saving, giving, and living within their means. Archangel Michael says, discipline is the bridge between struggle and success. Embrace it, and you will find freedom. They learned that true wealth isn't measured by the size of your bank account, but by the peace in your heart and the wisdom in your decisions. They found that trusting in God's plan meant being a good steward of the resources they were given, no matter how small or large. Type blessings if you believe that abundance begins with faith and discipline. This story isn't just about one person's journey, it's a wake-up call for anyone who has ever ignored the quiet nudges to change course. Financial mistakes don't define you, but how you respond to them does. Whether you're struggling with debt, overspending, or simply feeling overwhelmed by your finances, remember that it's never too late to turn things around. Each choice you make has the power to either lead you closer to freedom or further into bondage. And even when you've made mistakes, grace is always available. By acknowledging your missteps, seeking guidance, and committing to better choices, you can transform your life, not just financially, but spiritually and emotionally as well. This journey taught the young professional more than just how to manage money, it taught them how to trust in God's wisdom above their own. It showed them the value of humility, the importance of asking for help, and the peace that comes from living with intention. Today, they stand as a testament to the power of grace, determination, and faith. So, let this be your reminder. No matter how far you've wandered or how deep you've fallen, there is always a way back. With discipline, humility, and trust in divine guidance, you can overcome even the greatest of challenges. Archangel Michael says, "Your mistakes are not the end of your story, they're the beginning of your transformation." Take this message to heart and share it with someone who might need it. Let the lessons of humility and stewardship inspire you to make better choices today and every day. Type Amen if you're ready to embrace wisdom and walk the path of abundance. Archangel Michael says, "Not everything that glitters is gold, and not every promise of wealth is a blessing in disguise." This is a story about the illusion of security, a lesson that reminds us that trusting in the wrong things can lead to heartbreaking consequences, but trusting in God can rebuild even the most broken foundations. A middle-aged couple, hardworking and full of hope for their future, had spent decades building their life together. Every penny they saved was carefully tucked away, a nest egg meant to carry them into a peaceful retirement. They dreamed of traveling, spending time with their grandchildren, and living a life free of financial worry. Then came an offer that seemed too good to be true. A friend introduced them to an investment opportunity, a scheme that promised guaranteed returns far beyond what any traditional savings account or mutual fund could offer. The couple was hesitant at first but reassured by the glowing testimonials of others who claimed to have doubled or even tripled their money. The allure of quick riches began to overshadow their cautious instincts. Archangel Michael says, "Trust is sacred. Place it wisely, for misplaced trust can lead to ruin." The couple poured their entire life savings into the scheme, believing it was their ticket to financial freedom. But what they didn't know was that the promises were hollow, and the testimonials were part of a carefully crafted illusion. They didn't research the investment thoroughly, trusting instead in the convincing words of the scheme's representatives. Type faith if you're ready to anchor your trust in God's wisdom rather than fleeting promises. Months passed, and at first, everything seemed to be going as promised. The couple received updates showing impressive returns on their investment. But soon, the updates stopped coming. The phone calls they made to the representatives went unanswered, and the company's website disappeared. Panic set in as the harsh reality became clear. They had lost everything. Devastated, the couple felt betrayed and broken. They questioned themselves and their decisions. overwhelmed by regret. They had worked so hard for decades, only to see their savings vanish in an instant. Their once bright dreams now seemed like distant, unattainable fantasies. In their despair, they turned to prayer, seeking comfort and answers. It was in their quiet moments of prayer that they began to find solace. They opened their hearts to God, asking not for the return of their money but for the strength to move forward. As they reflected on their journey, they found wisdom in the lessons they had overlooked. They realized they had placed their trust in the wrong hands, chasing quick riches instead of leaning on patience, contentment, and faith. Through Scripture, they found messages of perseverance and trust in divine timing. They came to understand that true wealth isn't measured in dollars or possessions but in the strength of one's faith, the love of family, and the peace that comes from knowing God's grace. They learned that while material wealth is fleeting, spiritual wealth is eternal and unshakable. Determined to rebuild their lives, the couple started anew. They embraced simple living, focusing on what truly mattered: their health, their relationships, and their faith. They began volunteering at their church, sharing their story with others as a cautionary tale and a testament to God's ability to turn pain into purpose. Archangel Michael says, "What is lost in the material world can be restored in abundance in the spiritual realm." The couple found joy not in what they had lost but in what they had gained: a deeper connection to God, a renewed sense of purpose, and a community that supported and uplifted them. They discovered that even in the face of great loss, they were never truly alone. Type blessed if you trust that God's plan for you is greater than any temporary setback. This experience became a turning point, not just financially but spiritually. They no longer chased illusions of security or wealth. Instead, they built their lives on a foundation of faith and wisdom, trusting that God's plan for them would always provide what they needed. Let this story serve as a reminder: not every promise of wealth is a blessing, and not every loss is the end of the road. When we place our trust in God and embrace His teachings of patience and contentment, we can find a wealth that no thief can steal and no scheme can destroy. Archangel Michael says, "True security lies not in what you own but in who you trust." Archangel Michael says, "Pride often comes before the fall, but humility paves the way to redemption." This is a story about the trap of prideful spending, a lesson that warns us about the dangers of unchecked ambition and the wisdom of living with humility and gratitude. A young entrepreneur, brimming with ambition and determination, poured their heart into their startup. Their hard work paid off, and their business quickly took off, bringing them fame and fortune seemingly overnight. With success came the allure of a lavish lifestyle: luxury cars, designer clothes, extravagant vacations. It wasn't just about enjoying their wealth, it was about showing the world they had made it. At first, it seemed harmless. They deserved to enjoy the fruits of their labor, didn't they? But as the months turned into years, their spending habits grew increasingly reckless. Instead of reinvesting into their business or saving for the future, they poured money into fleeting pleasures and status symbols. They believed their success was unshakable, that the market would always favor them, and that their fortune would only grow. Archangel Michael says, "Overconfidence is a false shield. It cannot protect you when the storms of life arrive." The young entrepreneur ignored the quiet warnings from friends and mentors who urged them to be cautious. They believed they were invincible, that their success was entirely of their own making. But then, as the market took a downturn, everything they had built began to crumble. Type faith if you trust that God's wisdom can guide you through life's challenges. Suddenly, the lavish lifestyle they had so proudly displayed became impossible to sustain. Contracts were lost, expenses piled up, and debts they had ignored in the good times now loomed large. The once celebrated entrepreneur found themselves bankrupt, struggling to keep even the basics afloat. The fall from grace was swift and brutal. Leaving them isolated and ashamed, in their darkest hour, when it felt like all hope was lost, they fell to their knees, overwhelmed with regret. It was in that moment of despair that they finally heard God's voice, not in anger, but in love. Seek humility, the voice seemed to say. What you have lost in pride, you can regain in grace. What you lack in riches, you can find in me. The entrepreneur realized how blind they had been. Their pride had led them to place their worth in material possessions and fleeting success. But now, stripped of all that, they could finally see what truly mattered: faith, family, and the ability to serve others with kindness and generosity. They began to rebuild, not just their business, but their life, this time with God at the center. They adopted principles of moderation and gratitude, learning to appreciate the small blessings that often went unnoticed in their pursuit of grandeur. They gave generously to their community, not out of pride or for recognition, but out of a genuine desire to help others avoid the mistakes they had made. They lived within their means, understanding that true wealth isn't about accumulation but about stewardship and service. Archangel Michael says, humility is not a weakness. It is the strength to place your trust in something greater than yourself. The entrepreneur's new approach to life brought them a sense of peace and purpose they had never felt before. Their business began to grow again, this time built on a foundation of wisdom, discipline, and faith. They no longer sought to prove their worth through possessions but found joy in living a life that honored God's principles. This story is a powerful reminder that prideful spending and overconfidence can lead to ruin, but humility and faith can rebuild what has been lost. It's not about avoiding success or wealth but about using it responsibly, with a heart of gratitude and a focus on what truly matters. Let the lessons of this young entrepreneur inspire you to examine your own life. Are you chasing fleeting symbols of success, or are you building a legacy of faith and service? Remember, it's never too late to turn back to God, to seek His guidance, and to begin anew. Archangel Michael says, the fall is not the end, it's the chance to rise again, stronger and wiser than before. Trust in His plan, embrace humility, and live with generosity and gratitude. What you build with God at the center will endure beyond any storm. Archangel Michael says, warnings come as whispers before they turn into storms. Heed them, and you will find peace. This is the story of a young college student who ignored the signs and fell into the trap of reckless spending. It's a reminder that the choices we make today can echo for years to come, but with God's guidance, it's never too late to change course. It all began with an email, an exclusive credit card offer. The sleek design, bold promises, and tempting perks felt like an invitation to a world of independence and success. For the college student, this card wasn't just about convenience, it felt like a step into adulthood. A tool to show the world they were capable and thriving. Without thinking twice, they signed up, ignoring the advice their parents had given them about avoiding unnecessary debt. At first, the card was a source of excitement. They used it to buy textbooks, upgrade their gadgets, and treat friends to meals. Each swipe felt empowering, a way to enjoy life without immediate consequences. But as the balance grew, so did their anxiety. Minimum payments kept piling up, and interest rates began to snowball, turning their small purchases into unmanageable debt. Archangel Michael says, ignoring wisdom doesn't erase consequences, it amplifies them. Friends and family noticed their habits and tried to offer advice. Be careful with credit, their father said. Make a budget, their mother suggested. But the student brushed them off, convinced they had everything under control. They were too proud to admit they needed help and too focused on enjoying the moment to think about the future. As the months passed, the weight of their financial struggles began to take a toll. The student couldn't keep up with their bills, and collection calls became a daily occurrence. They started avoiding their family out of shame and stopped going out with friends, unable to afford even the simplest of pleasures. Their once bright world had dimmed, and they felt trapped in a cycle of regret and despair. One Sunday, feeling overwhelmed, they decided to attend a church service, hoping to find comfort. During the sermon, the pastor spoke about stewardship, about how everything we have, even our money, is a gift from God and must be used wisely. The message hit home like a lightning bolt. They realized their financial struggles weren't just a result of poor choices but of ignoring God's wisdom and chasing fleeting desires. Type Amen if you're ready to align your life with God's wisdom and guidance. That day marked the beginning of a transformation. The student turned to God in prayer, asking for forgiveness, strength, and guidance. They reached out to their parents, finally admitting the truth about their situation. Together, they created a plan to tackle the debt, one step at a time. It wasn't easy, but with each small victory, they felt a renewed sense of hope. They also began to embrace a simpler life. They learned to find joy in the things that truly mattered: faith, family, and community. They stopped chasing trends and instead focused on building a future rooted in discipline and gratitude. What once seemed like an insurmountable burden became a powerful testimony of God's grace and the strength found in humility. Archangel Michael says, "The path of wisdom begins when pride gives way to surrender." The students started sharing their story with others, warning friends and classmates about the dangers of ignoring financial advice. They became an advocate for living within one's means, helping others avoid the same mistakes they had made. This experience didn't just change their financial habits, it deepened their faith. They came to understand that God's wisdom is not restrictive but protective, meant to guide us toward a life of peace and fulfillment. By listening to His guidance and embracing a life of simplicity, they found a freedom they had never known before. Let this story serve as a reminder: the choices you make today shape the life you'll live tomorrow. When you ignore God's wisdom, you risk falling into traps that could have been avoided. But even when you stumble, His grace is always there to lift you up and set you back on the right path. Archangel Michael says, "A life aligned with God's wisdom is a life of abundance and peace." No matter where you are or how far you've fallen, it's never too late to turn back to Him. Trust in His guidance, embrace His teachings, and find the strength to rebuild. What lies ahead is greater than anything you leave behind. If this message resonated with you, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more messages of hope and guidance. Together, we can spread the light of Archangel Michael to all who need it. Thank you for watching, and may you stay safe and blessed always.